Hello, welcome to Productions MJC.
I got a notification about a video Bob had produced, and I was highly disappointed. Not in the video itself, because Bob does a great job of he doesn't really hijack other people's videos, but he does expound on them. And he does a great job of that on the flat earth subject. Any other subject, though, in my personal experience, he falls incredibly short and kind of reveals his true nature. Because right now, Bob looks like the Mr. Rogers of Globe Earth against Flat Earth. Nice demeanor and everything else. However, what I would like to show you is I asked Bob some of my questions. I had been trying to get Bob to recognize me, trying to get him to talk back. And I finally just said, you know, you have great questions of other people. I have some questions I'd like to ask them. Here's my videos. Look at them, see what you think, and then respond. And then the true nature of Bob started to come out in my view, because he was talking directly to me. So it was anecdotal to me. Anecdotal means personal experience. It's kind of gotten a bad rap. You know, empirical, a connotation of empirical evidence is just what the masses have, as opposed to anecdotal, what your personal experience is. Much the way when a person says they want to see empirical evidence of something, actually what they mean usually is anecdotal. They mean they want personal, hands-on, touchy-feely type experience. But I digress. Anyway, this Mr. Rogers sort of persona that's shown here came out as a facade to me, considering sort of the language and the feeling I got from the correspondence between Bob and I that I'm going to show you here. It was quite disturbing, you know, to look at the Mr. Rogers and then to read the response. But of course, to be fair, text responses usually don't carry any emotion with them, so you don't really know. But this came across pretty loud and clear. Right off the bat, Bob is exerting his dominance, telling me how many questions I'm going to ask, how I'm going to ask them and such. And how many times in a debate have you been both the moderator and a participant? I don't recall ever seeing a debate in any forum where one of the participants was actually the moderator as well, but I digress again. And let's look at that first correspondence again, wherein Bob says he's not going to watch my 3 videos that I sent the links to him. He's not going to watch them at all, just ask a few questions, and here we go. So, of course, I was courteous and said, well, you know, I watched yours, but okay, whatever. So I begin to ask my questions. I roll up and I ask Bob right off the bat, how many vaccines have been both 100% effective and not just effective, not only completely eliminating the disease, wiping it off the face of the earth, but also one and done treatment, not 10, 3 doses, 8 doses, stuff like that. Bob's first blush reply was one, of course, of automatic assumption that I was a member of the anti-vaxxers group or something like that, instead of looking at my question as an actual correct, historically correct, and factually accurate question. I don't know, maybe it's because I actually asked 3 questions in one, you know, because I did sneak that how effective is the measles vaccine according to the CDC. While Bob's response is subtle, it does speak volumes to his personality, and it'll help you understand. Bob attempts to minimize and marginalize my questions by the comment, typical approach from an anti-vax movement. Here goes. He's attempting right off the bat to make my questions seem not as important as they obviously are. If the questions weren't that big a deal, then he wouldn't have to minimize and marginalize right off the bat. He could just get to it and answer the questions and be done. But he had to fight them off. And when I read his response, all I could think is, boy, pure deception, pure propaganda. When he says none are 100% effective, and he goes, oh, smallpox and polio come to mind. And when has Bob ever let somebody say, hey, that's too difficult a question, that's an unnecessary question, and let him get away with, well, that's good enough, and yet he uses it himself? I instantly lost respect for Bob right there. I mean, that's ridiculous. Oh, but wait, there's more. Notice how Bob says he's in a debate. Debate housekeeping questions. Well, the standard high school debate, ARE, that's assertion or argument, reasoning, and followed up by evidence. But did Bob do that with his questions? Let's take another look. Is using the excuse that somebody's questions are difficult, or saying that it's good enough evidence or reasoning? Not at all. If this were a high school debate class, you would receive a failing grade for not accomplishing ARE. I then began to educate Bob that if he had spent the time to watch my videos, he would have realized I'm not an anti-vaxxer. My family and I have had 1,200 doses of these vaccines, all of them. I just am presenting some good questions. I'm presenting some reasoning and evidence. Bob usually talks up a good game about flat Earth and globe Earth because globe Earth is easy pickings. It's easy to prove that. But he talks about falsifying flat Earth claims and stuff. Let's falsify some of his claims. Well, the smallpox vaccine was 100% effective, so there's one. It was so effective and so good that we don't even need it anymore because the disease is gone. Polio isn't almost gone. I mean, he, in a video, told people it isn't. One and done cures were the norm and were expected in 1796 when the smallpox vaccine was invented. You know what? They wanted the disease to be gone forever. They never wanted to ever deal with that disease again. They wanted it done. And it is. Okay, that's 3. Let's go for some more, okay, Bob? In what the CDC is calling an outbreak, in May their numbers showed that 3 out of every 8 people that got that disease were actually vaccinated. And it was the measles. And if you remember, Bob said that the efficiency of a vaccine doesn't really matter, just as long as it's out there. Yeah, tell that to the 3 people out of 8 that got the vaccine, or myself, like I got whooping cough vaccine twice and I still got it. And of course I reminded Bob that we both ask flat earthers the actual historically accurate questions, and they don't like it either. And I went right back to the hard-hitting historically accurate questions, like, hey, the Boeing 737 is 96% efficient. Let's go jump on one of those and take a flight, right? His reply to me reveals a far more discouraging and disturbing aspect of the personality, known on YouTube as Bob the Science Guy. Bob makes it known in no uncertain terms that I have to acknowledge the fact that he's right before he's going to go any further with me. But you do realize that is mentally unhealthy, to demand that somebody acknowledge you're right before you'll even continue to converse with them or debate with them. That's really, really unhealthy. And again, with the minimalization, the marginalization of my position by saying he doesn't care, like in number 2, and saying it was a requirement. Of course it was, because they never wanted to deal with that disease ever again, and it's gone. So again, I go back and I just say, look, I read encyclopedias, I study this stuff because I don't know, and so I find out. And yes, the smallpox vaccine was 100% effective. So that messes up one of his claims. And think about it. The medical community has set this low bar standard that a disease no longer has to be cured. Just kind of play with it for a while? Why? Why would you think that? History is of no importance concerning this vaccines and such when it's dealing with vaccines. And vaccines only? But if it's a flat earth, globe earth argument, which is easy pickings, oh, boom, pounce on that? What? Basically, I asked Bob, why do you give the medical community a pass when it comes to history, and yet nothing else. Basically, I figured my chance with Bob was running out, so I just gave it both barrels. I went for it and said, you know, there's no profit in making a vaccine 100% efficient. And history shows that, because there's only been one. And everything else, they kind of say, well, that's good enough. He's right on that. You know why they don't make tires out of silicone? Because one set would last the entire car. You'd never have to buy a bunch. You'd be one and done. I did get to tell Bob about my pharmacist grandfather, who said there's no need for all these other medicines. They just continue to make more and more, and new versions of them, because the new and improved version, because the patent runs out and they have to sell generics. They don't make the money, so they make this new patented drug. He said it's all a scam. I never got a chance to tell Bob about my aunt or my sister, because he saw that I was playing hardball and he ran away. He just chickened out and said forget it. He hasn't run away from flat earthers, but he sure ran away from me. I would have loved to get the chance to show Bob some personal hard-hitting evidence about my aunt who went to Mexico to get Laetrile treatments for her cancer, and my sister who stayed here in the United States. My aunt lived another 30 years to die in 2009, and my little sister was dead in 8 months. My little sister was denied VP16 treatments, even though the medical place where she was going to was receiving federal grant money to do testing on people for VP16 to see how effective it was on certain diseases, certain cancers. And VP16 is the main drug, and think of it like a lab-created Laetrile. They wouldn't give it to her because my dad's insurance wouldn't pay. But wait, it gets worse. My little sister died within 2 hours of getting a radiation treatment. And, Bob, you know what? The insurance company refused to pay because they said the medical community was irradiating a corpse. So they sued my parents for the cost of that radiation treatment. But wait, it gets worse. An autopsy wasn't done because my parents didn't want one done. It was pretty obvious what killed her. And, you guessed it, the hospital sued my parents for the cost of an autopsy that they didn't get to perform because it was a loss of income. So, Bob, when you run away from the argument saying that go peddle my conspiracies elsewhere, you know, you try to minimize and marginalize what's happened to me and my dead sister, well, you know what, Bob? You can stuff it. Because the hospitals themselves said it's all about the money on more than one occasion. They made it very, very plain. It's all about the money. It's only about the money. So until you have the same experiences as me, Bob, again, stuff it.
Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. This has been Productions MJC.